What graphics card should you buy this year? What a question. We now have the 5700 and 5700 XT from AMD, as well as new supercards from Nvidia, but with prices ranging from £100 to £1,000, things across the range can certainly get a little bit confusing. And this is where this video comes in handy, as I'm going to walk you through all of the different graphics cards, the different resolutions, how they work, what the difference between a reference design is and AIB, and pretty much, I guess, help you choose your next graphics card and make sure that it's the right one for you. Kicking off really very simply, a graphics card sits in the PCIe slot on your motherboard, and it handles all of the graphical calculations that your computer needs, as well as the output signal to your display. A graphics card is made up of a GPU, or graphics processing unit, and this sits on a printed circuit board along with memory chips and voltage regulators. Depending on how much power the GPU requires, you are likely to see some sort of cooling system, as well as additional power connections that hook up to your PC's internal power supply. And these cooling solutions are often what differentiates different cards of the same name. So this is a GTX 2060 Super, and this is a GTX 2060 Super. But you'll find that the I/O is different on each card. They will perform slightly differently as they have different speeds, and ultimately because they've got a different cooling solution, they not only look completely different, but they will have different levels of acoustics as well. I feel like I'm going to fight someone with these. I'm like a robot. You see, each graphics card will have a reference design associated with it, with the latest AMD graphics cards being prime examples. They basically show the vendors how the card can be designed, with internal PCB layouts, etc., but with a more basic, easy to manufacture cooling solution. And this blower style design is great for moving heat out of a PC case, but they're pretty loud, and they're not exactly the most exciting. So this is why AIBs, or add-in board partners, will come along with radical new designs for coolers, and while they will charge a premium, they look better, sound better, and even perform better, with slight tweaks to the clock speeds and a better boost performance thanks to the lower temperatures. Many of them will circulate air within your PC case, however, so you're always going to need to make sure that your case fans are up to the task of venting this hot air to prevent any thermal throttling. Now at the very core of it, a graphics card will offer additional display outputs, so you can have more displays active at the same time. But of course, if you're buying a graphics card, you're probably going to be doing this for accelerating 3D workloads, but mainly, and probably in this case, gaming. This performance boost is all made possible due to the very different nature of GPUs to CPUs. Rather than using 4 to 12 cores, a GPU can literally have thousands, and this allows a graphics card to make many calculations all at the same time. It's very clever tech, and it's what allows all of these hyper-realistic games to actually run in a playable state. You can work out the relative strength of a graphics card by looking at the number of cores or processing units, as well as the speed that they run at. And yes, as you'd imagine, the higher, the better. As you crank up the resolution and in-game effects, you'll also find that you need more graphics memory to actually let the card keep up in the first place. Though generally speaking, you'll typically find that each level of graphics card normally has an appropriate amount of memory for the types of games and resolutions that it can actually run. If you do find that you're running into GPU memory problems, then lowering the textures and anti-aliasing settings are usually quite easy ways to fix the issue. Now on the newest graphics cards, you'll typically find that we have additional features that are baked right into the GPU itself, with both Team Green and Team Red having video encoders that will let you do things like stream and record your gameplay. But I think the most exciting features for a lot of people are what Nvidia are doing with their Tensor cores and RT cores, which enable a whole bunch of RTX effects. The video encoders provide a great way to record and stream your gameplay without really taxing your system, and this can be enabled within Radeon settings and GeForce Experience respectively. Nvidia's Tensor and RT cores, however, are very much game focused, with Tensor cores allowing for AI upscaling in the form of DLSS or Deep Learning Supersampling, and then RT cores which allow for real-time ray tracing effects. Both of them have their place and they're great features to have, but they're not essential to gaming by any means. But all of this is very much a long-winded debate, something that's been going on for a long time. So if you do want to learn a little bit more about ray tracing or DLSS, the differences they make, what they look like, and importantly the performance differences, you can find my full video explaining all of this in the top right hand corner of your screen. The main question you'll probably be asking yourself though is whether you should be looking at an Nvidia card or one from AMD. And the good news is that there is no wrong answer, but sadly it is going to depend on a lot of factors. Price to performance should be your main consideration, as you're going to want to get the largest amount of FPS for your money, and this means looking into benchmarks for the games that you actually want to play, and at the resolutions that you're actually going to be playing at, and getting the card that then suits you the best. Just don't forget about acoustics and other features, as while one card may be cheaper than the other, it may well be worth upgrading for a few extra quid to get a better cooler, or maybe some features that you just otherwise wouldn't have. If you do want the short answer, however, then good news. I'm about to break down all of the different graphics cards and show you all of the different benchmarks, and so hopefully by the end of this video you'll know what's going to be the right card for your particular game, or maybe just the one I think that you're going to have your eye on. Don't forget that if you do want to check out current pricing, you can find all of my affiliate links down in the description below. We'll start with entry-level gaming, as this is the one that is actually pretty easy at the moment. You're looking to buy an AMD RX 570 or an Nvidia GTX 1660 if the budget allows, as both of these will hit very playable frame rates at 1080p, and while you may not be looking at ultra settings in the most demanding titles, it's a really solid start to your PC gaming journey, especially if you're wanting to play something like Apex or Fortnite. I'm not really a huge fan of recommending the cards lower than this, as you'll typically find that price to performance can actually take a big hit. So if you're looking at spending nearer the $100 mark, let's say, then the used market is actually very likely to get you more bang for the buck. A huge shout out to KitGuru for all of those benchmarks, because I actually had to send my lower end cards back sadly, so if you want to see full reviews of any of those graphics cards, KitGuru are great guys, go and check them out with the links below. If you're after a new PC that's all about Battle Royale, and you want to maximise price to performance, then this is where the action is really hotting up. AMD has just released the 5700 graphics card, and they've even dropped the price to $349. This puts it neck and neck with the RTX 2060, and I definitely see a huge price war starting here. Both of the cards are able to trade blows at all resolutions, but this is very much designed for high refresh rate 1080p gaming or 60 FPS at 1440p. Like all of these cards, I'd say a lot of it is going to be about pricing at the time of checkout, but ultimately it can't be ignored the fact that these cards do have those RTX features, so if this is something that you really want, this is going to be something that you should pay attention to. Stepping it up another $50, and we see the Super versus XT battle that we've been waiting for. And again, the winner's not completely clear cut here. Both cards will ace 1440p at ultra settings, and there's very little to gain by spending more than this unless you're running a ultra-wide monitor or a 4K display. It is very early days for AMD's drivers, so I wouldn't be surprised to see more performance out of the new architecture over time, but again, if you want ray tracing, there's only really one choice available. It's also worth noting that both of Nvidia's cards do have a much better reference cooler with their Founders Edition though. So if you're looking at the two side by side at the same price, then I'd pick the green card every time. But once the AIBs get hold of the GPUs though, it's very much anybody's game. If you're lucky enough to be running a fancy 4K or Quad HD ultra-wide monitor though, then you're going to need to look at a Radeon 7 or an RTX 2070 and above. The Super 2080 is sadly still under NDA, and I don't actually have a Radeon 7 myself to test, which should perform more or less the same as a 2080. So assuming that we're looking at the same sort of boosts as we saw with the 60 Super and 70 Super, the 2080 Super is going to be a clear aim at the Radeon 7, and assuming the two are at the same price, the Radeon would be quite hard to recommend, so I'd expect to see a price drop on the Radeon 7 quite soon. But ultimately, the most important thing is to get the best graphics card you can afford that meets the requirements for your display. Things can get very pricey as we head towards the RTX 2080 Ti, and while it's great to have the choice, at this level you're sinking a lot of money into a single component, and you need to make sure that the rest of your PC can actually keep up. You're going to need a very beefy power supply and CPU, and a display that actually makes use of all of that power. My advice is to study all of the benchmarks very carefully, and if you're running a 1440p display, then there's no point buying an RTX 2080 because you're not really going to be able to actually use that performance. You'd be better off looking at maybe some new peripherals, or maybe a new monitor, as these will have more of a game-changing effect past the certain stage of performance. Basically, do your research. Don't forget that the other items in your setup will make a difference. So if you're maxing out your display, consider upgrading it, or maybe your mouse and keyboard. Either way, be in control of your upgrades and make an informed buying decision. I'll leave all of my affiliate links to all of these GPUs down below if you do want to check out the always fluctuating current pricing. And if you do want to ask any questions, let me know down in the comment section below or on Twitter. It's @PCcentric. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please hit the like button if you have. It helps out so much. Get subscribed for more videos just like this, and I'll see you in the next one.